As the sequel to A Darker Shade of Magic, there is a lot of excitement for A Gathering of Shadows.
The first book captured a lot of imaginations with its unique four-universe world, intriguing magic system, and interesting characters. We weren't even sure if there was going to be a sequel, but lo and behold, here it is.
The previous book followed Kell as his interworld smuggling gets him into trouble. He accidentally lets something into the world that he shouldn't have. Kell has to fight off a nasty case of chaos magic and defeat some very powerful monarchs. At his side is the restless and distrustful thief Lila.
Picking up where the first book left off, Lila boards a ship and sails off into the great beyond. She becomes a crew member of a mage privateer named Alucard.
Alucard begins to teach Lila magic, being a triad himself, but eventually gets called back to London to enter the elemental games.
Kell, on the other hand, is feeling trapped. To save Ree, he had to bind their lives together, and it's come with some challenges. For one, they can now feel each other's pain and moods, and for another, if Kell dies, Ree dies with him.
But luckily the elemental games, think Magic Olympics. No, actually, Triwizard Tournament. Yeah, the elemental games are coming up soon, and Kell is coerced into entering to blow off some steam.
There aren't a whole lot of new characters introduced in this book, the only significant addition being Lila's captain, Alucard.
Honestly, he's a more subtle Magnus Bane, and you have to love Magnus Bane. He's not gonna guzzle sparkles or anything, but he will drape himself in silk and seduce the pants right off of you.
Pants? Who needs pants?
And like Magnus, Alucard is wise, crafty, perceptive, and witty. You can't go wrong with that.
He also has a major thing for Ree, which you could strike them together and they would burn down the rainforest. When the two of them are together, they're practically joined at the hip?
Yeah, the hip. Speaking of Ree, he has gone through some major changes at the end of the last book. Mainly, he died that one time, and that changed him a lot. Gone is the Peacock Prince, obsessed with magical power, and the new Ree is someone who is growing into his gifts and might make an amazing king.
A lot of his worst characteristics were left behind, and he finally understands that it's not magic that will make him a good king. He's charming and clever, and he has the best interests of his people in mind. He'll do fine.
But Ree's relationship with Kell has become strained, because he realizes that he is now a burden to his brother. Kell will always feel the need to live his life safely for Ree's sake, but Ree doesn't want to be a prison.
It's a very endearing disposition that really rounds out Ree and makes a great internal struggle. How many characters have to deal with being that connected to another person?
And speaking of Kell, the events of the last book have given him a bit of a wild side. All he wants to do is go out and get in a fight.
He's gonna start a fight.
And that's exactly what he gets to do when he sneaks into the elemental games. He gets to kick ass, no holds barred.
The strain of bonding his life to his brother is taking quite a toll on him. He doesn't regret what he did for a second, but I don't think he thought it would be this difficult. And now he has to balance his need to see Ree safe with his desire to see the world and have adventures.
It plays out, if not exactly nuanced, then believable. You can't help but feel for him.
And then, of course, there's Lila, who has found a place on board Alucard's ship where she's happy, but of course, she can't leave well enough alone. If she's happy, she has to poke it.
Probably not one of her more endearing qualities. I think that this picture that V. Schwab put up describes her and the entire novel quite perfectly.
Lila just goes about doing whatever she wants, and damn the consequences.
I have a hard time relating to her and her crazy actions. They're never out of character, but it's just like, ugh, stand still, stop ruining your happiness, stop it!
She has no idea how to do anything but run straight at what she wants. And while she's grown since the last novel, i.e. she now has an inkling of how to trust people, she still has a ways to go.
I mean, on a list of characters I'd want to have with me when I save the world, she'd be at the top, but still.
The plot of A Gathering of Shadows takes a fair bit of time to get going. A good third of the novel goes by before you even get to the elemental games, which is something the characters have been talking about the entire book.
The first third of the book is spent on developing the characters, and it's a slow burn. It's not intolerable, but it's not overly exciting either.
The elemental games, while interesting, takes up the next third and a bit of the rest of the book. But in the grand scheme of the series' master narrative, it's not actually that important for driving the plot forward. It's more of like a fun side plot that focuses on character development.
I'm sensing a theme.
Me too.
It's only in the last 50 or so pages that the main plot kicks back in. You remember? All that stuff to do with black chaos magic?
You'd think, after you stab someone in the heart with a steel pipe, and then push them near death into an evil portal of doom, that they'd have the decency to stay dead.
That's right. Holland, the evil Antari, is back. And he wants to do good things for White London. And he's determined to destroy Red London in order to do so. But keep your socks on, because as interesting as this all is, it only really kicks in the above-mentioned 50 pages.
Kind of makes you feel for Holland, though. He was forced to be an evil bastard in the last book, and after he's been revived, he could just go about his life and say, screw it, screw White London. But instead he comes back and he actually wants to fix it and change things. It makes you feel for him.
Well, we'll have to wait till the next book to see what's really up with him.
I guess the most frustrating part of this book would have to be the king and queen. They are the closest thing I think this book has to villains. They know about Kell and Rhee's new bond, and they're determined to do everything they can to keep Kell on a leash for Rhee's sake.
Everything from ordering him around, to putting him under house arrest, to blaming him for the black magic invasion, just to try and guilt him into staying.
And this coming from a couple who once described themselves as Kell's parents. It definitely hurts Kell, and it is the exact wrong approach to take.
You definitely begin to hate them as much as you begin to love Rhee. I mean, here is someone who literally sacrificed his life for their son, and they have the nerve to tell him that he hasn't sacrificed enough.
To sum it up, A Gathering of Shadows is just that. V.E. Schwab gathering up the threads for her next book. And for all of the character development that we get in this novel, when the plot finally does kick back in, it kicks so hard we get a nasty cliffhanger.
So, now we just have to sit here, wait for the finale. Yep, just sitting here. I'm not stressed or anything.
A Gathering of Shadows was different than what you might have expected if you read A Darker Shade of Magic, which seemed to run all over the map. A Gathering of Shadows seems to pace in place, but it's really just working itself up for the major sprint to the finish line.
And while the book is at a slower pace, it doesn't come across as boring, because you've got solid characters and interesting personal situations.
So if you were a fan of the first novel, or you're just waiting to see where the series goes before you pick it up, I'd say now's the time to go for it.